Hi, this is Sarah Marks, one of the librarians here at UMass Lowell. For this video, I'm going to briefly discuss dealing with bias in research papers, that is, the papers you write. Bias isn't a new issue when it comes to people writing research papers. In the past few years, it has become a greater concern. But why? What's wrong with having a bias? Bias is something we all have. It shapes the way we see the world. But bias in research leads to giving weight to one point of view at the expense of other perspectives. We're trying to elevate above our perspectives when we do research. Remember, everyone in every organization has a bias. Even an organization like Mothers Against Drunk Driving has a bias. In their case, their bias is that drinking and driving is a problem. But what happens if an article comes out with evidence that drinking and driving never was a problem or is no longer a problem? What would they do with it? Bias is not merely political. It may not be an actual problem, but you need to be aware it exists. When we evaluate sources to use to support our points in research papers, we turn to sources that we feel have less bias than others. Researchers try to rise above their bias to see what the actual data is telling us, even if we don't like that message. Part of the peer review process for those scholarly and academic articles is that the reviewers look to see if the author's bias impacted the research. Even a source like Wikipedia wants to avoid biased information. They want their articles to be written from a neutral point of view. And so do you. This doesn't mean you can use Wikipedia in your research paper, but this is an example of how problematic biases can be and how aware these sources are of it. One of the reasons professors keep telling you to use peer-reviewed articles is because the peer-reviewed process is one of the most thorough editorial processes we have. Newspapers and magazines have editors, and so do most books, but none are as detailed as the editors for the peer review articles because they typically have multiple people editing. It's not a perfect system, but it is the most thorough. With that, we are able to know who the author is, where they work, how to contact them, what their expertise is, and we can find other articles they have written. We can see the sources of their information. Remember, adding citations to your paper is something we all do when we write. Even Wikipedia has citations. What should you do to determine bias in a source you're using? It requires some work. First, look at the source of the articles and the author. Who are they? Who's responsible? Check an about page, but don't stop there. Look them up on Wikipedia and see who they are. Learn as much as you can to make sure that they're not trying to push one side or the other. A lot of web pages seem neutral and informative until you learn that they're sponsored by a group with a strong bias that makes you question the quality of their information. Where did this funding come from? Very often the source of their money might indicate what angle they're going to take. And if you can't figure it out, ask a librarian or your professor to help. We're always happy to look over a site and see if you're going to have a problem with bias in the information.